Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of It's a Rare Thing. You know this podcast by now. Hopefully, we're in series two. I've decided it's series. We're UK, we're British, so it's going to be series two of this podcast series. And this series, we're looking at. We're always talking to remarkable people. It's got a different slant to it, and you'll know this if you listen to the last episode, and you'll certainly know this if you listen to this episode, because this episode is a story of hope. Isn't it, Hope?
Yeah, hello.
I bet if you had £1 for every time that somebody made an aside about your wonderful name, you'd be a very, very rich woman by now.
I would have a lot of money, yeah.
You'd have a lot of money. You'd have a lot of money. Hope, so look, I'm going to start off by, unusually for a woman, introducing your age to the story, if that's okay, because
Yeah.
I think it's central to your story, and I think it's central to younger people who's going to be listening to this podcast. So you're 18, correct?
Yep.
And you do have a remarkable story. And as always with these podcasts, I'm going to try and keep my talking to the minimum and let you tell your story. But if I sort of kick it off by saying you were in the second year of the pandemic, that's 2021, you were 12, 13 years old-ish?
Yeah, about.
Yeah. Okay. When things started getting slightly peculiar. So what happened? What happened around that time?
I remember I was in PE a lot at school. I loved PE, and I just remember that I started getting this stabbing pain around sort of my right rib cage, just out of nowhere. And I kept complaining about it. So my parents took me to the GP, and we just went for it. And they sent us away a lot of times, saying things like, "Oh, we think it's in your head. We think you're just trying to get out of lesson." But I think it was like the fourth time we went back. Eventually, they started taking things like blood tests and testing me for like appendicitis, celiac, just random things, and they couldn't find anything.
Sure.
So when they couldn't find anything, they just decided they would give up. So my mum wouldn't leave. She put her foot down. She said, "I'm not leaving until you give her an X-ray because I don't believe that you've done everything possible."
That's
So
mums for you. That's
yeah,
mums. They fight.
exactly.
They fight away. Bless them. Thank the
I
Lord.
know.
Okay, so she's dug her heels in.
Yeah. So eventually they did an X-ray. This was, I think we were in like 2022 by now. So it showed mild scoliosis with a 15-degree curve. So we had those results, but around the same time, I had just gotten my junior black belt in Jiu Jitsu. So I was still continuously going to classes, doing throws, stuff that I don't do anymore because it's quite dangerous. But I got thrown too far backwards by my partner, completely by accident. And it was at an angle that I couldn't have broken my fall. I would have been landing on my head. So I ended up landing on my neck, which it was sort of like a whiplash kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the time, I thought I'd be fine, but I ended up suffering sort of neck and shoulder pain for months and months after, which had me in like a soft neck brace at school. So we think that that's what sort of triggered my symptoms of that area, because my only symptom was the stabbing pains.
So just to be clear, they were the only symptoms. We're talking about headaches, are we, as well as stabbing pains, or just stabbing pains?
Literally just stabbing pains in my
Okay.
right rib cage.
Right.
That was it for me. So shortly after that, I got referred for an MRI. It wasn't because of the injury, it was because of the rib stabbing pains, and obviously the X-ray results. They wanted to know what was potentially driving the scoliosis.
Sorry, just to interrupt, that's really interesting, because you said neck and shoulder pain, and then you said stabbing pains in your ribs as well.
Yeah.
See,
it started with-
people wouldn't associate the front of you with the back of you. Do you know what I mean? In terms of if you have a spinal injury or a spinal condition, they kind of think, well, everything should be in the neck, the spine, it should be behind you. And actually, I experienced very similar symptoms, that actually everything was in front of me rather than behind me.
It's really strange. Like, it affects every part of your body. Yeah, I got the results showing chiari malformation type 1 with an extensive thoracic spinal cord syrinx. So yes, syringomyelia, and it was from C2 to T7 when they found it.
Which is relatively extensive, right?
Yeah, quite big, which is why they
Quite
panicked.
big. Yeah. Okay.
So they saw that and they panicked. So they booked me in for a surgery. I got the results from the scan in July, and I was straight in by September to have an operation. So I had the bone decompression when I was 14. And after it, the recovery was fine, but the Syrinx hadn't worsened or gotten better. It had just been stable.
So let me just rewind there slightly. So at the point of diagnosis, when you're diagnosed with this syrinx,
Yeah.
what information did you have to hand? Were you, what did consultants sort of take their time to really explain what this meant and actually what surgery could entail, what it might be able to fix and what it might not be able to fix, and maybe some of the repercussions of surgery? Because
Um,
it sounds to me like it all happened quite quickly.
it did happen very quickly, and I was quite young, so I can't fully remember. But I do remember it being very sort of fabricated, if that makes sense. My surgeon sort of made it out as if he could fix it by doing this magical operation that would make things better, but that obviously isn't the case with this condition, and we know that now. But I just remember not really understanding it. I just saw something on the scan and just sort of thought, well, everything works, so what's the problem? Why do I need an operation?
I think sometimes and I'm not speaking for your neurosurgeon, and wasn't there, don't have the details, and but I would say that I don't know, as a medical professional, when a young person is facing quite a major operation, whilst you want to be truthful and honest and
Yeah.
transparent, I suppose you're also, and it's a balance, isn't it? You're trying to, I'm not sure if protect is the word, but trying to safeguard. There you go. Their mental health, their well-being. This is going to be quite a traumatic operation, and I suppose you want them going into the operation feeling positive, not worrying unduly, and trying to just, I don't know, put a. I'm tempted to say positive spin. I'm not going to say that, but actually look at the positive attributes that may be as a result of this operation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that. I completely get that. But at the same time, it should also be very realistic. In my opinion, I would have preferred that
You would
as
have
a young
done.
person.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Sure. So you had the decompression to relieve the pressure on your brain and spinal cord.
Yeah,
So this was primarily for the chiari or the syringomyelia. What were they aiming for?
definitely the syringomyelia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have enough symptoms for the chiari malformation to even have had. I don't think I would have had an operation at all if it wasn't for the syrinx.
Gotcha. Okay. And again, at this point, is it just the stabbing pains in the ribs and the shoulders and neck stiffness, or had it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at this point, it was still the stabbing pains in the ribs, and then the achiness from the injury in my neck and my shoulders that basically never went away after that.
So tell me post-operation what you were going through, what the results were, and your recovery.
My recovery for that one, because it was my first one, I can't really remember, but I think it was quite a smooth recovery. Um, I just had a lot of obviously upper back, neck pain, and headaches. Um, the results for it showed no change in really anything at all. The
Mm.
chiari was the same, the syrinx was the same. My symptoms remained the exact same, still being quite mild. But even though this was the case, I think it was about half a year later, they suggested going in again for another op.
Wow. Okay. So how did you feel
Yeah.
about that? And half a year later, 6 months later, were your symptoms starting to get slightly worse? What was happening?
No, no, nothing had changed. It
No?
was just
Okay.
still the same size of the syrinx that was worrying them. So they wanted to go through again. So it came into discussion about 6 months later, but we didn't fully go through with it until August of 2024, which was at the end of my year 11 academic year. I'd just finished my GCSEs, so we dragged it out so that I could do my exams and not have to be behind.
Very wise. Very wise. Now this was a deraplasty, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was a duroplasty.
Now, I've got a little explanation here because we cover many things in this podcast. And of course, there are medical terms where people just go, well, what's that? I've heard of decompression. I haven't heard of this. So I'm going to pronounce this wrongly. Of course I am. And all the medical professionals are going to just roll their eyes. But deraplasty is a neurosurgical procedure used to treat severe spinal cord or brain swelling. It involves the opening of the tough membrane surrounding the central nervous system, that's known as the dura, and stitching in a graft or artificial patch to expand the space. Safely, it says, relieving pressure and restoring blood flow. How did it go for you?
For me, I think at the time it went very well, but the recovery was very, very difficult. It was like nothing in comparison to my first op.
Wow.
It took me about 3 months to get back to sort of physical mild workouts because I still do Jiu Jitsu every week. It took me months to get back to that, like at a
Listen, that's
normal
good. That's
rate.
going to be a major part of the second part of this interview. Don't think you're saying jujitsu and getting away with it. I've got loads of questions about that, but don't you worry about that. Loads of questions. So, okay. So it was a 3 months to get you back to a physical state where you were able to do some exercise, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
But I read in this month's, I have to say, I did read the interview. It's a brilliant interview in this month's Anne Conroy Trust magazine that actually it took you a little bit longer for your cognitive functions to fully return.
Yeah, I think it took 9 or 10 months, I'd say. But at the time, I didn't even know it was happening to me. It was purely through college. I'd just started college. I'd started late,
Hmm.
and I wasn't getting normal results for me. I was borderline failing, but for me, I'd usually be getting sort of C's at a normal, because I'm not an A-star student, but I would be getting like a pass and I was getting sort of like E's in my exams, and I was jumping around from like E's to D's and to E's again.
That must have been really
So
tough and very
yeah,
confusing.
it was. I mean, they were completely new subjects, so I wouldn't have even known any different. But it wasn't until about the 9 month mark post surgery that I jumped from an E straight to like a high C in one of my toughest classes, and that kind of made me realize, oh, like was that was affecting me.
Mm, mm.
Um, so yeah,
Well, really, really, really interesting. I have to say, when a post spinal surgery that I had, I think one of the things that nobody prepares you for is the just gigantic shock to your nervous system that your body's just endured with operations such as this.
yeah,
And I,
definitely.
I don't know. I keep saying this. I'm not a medical professional. I don't know what the relationship is between your neurological system and your brain. Duh. But but there is certainly post surgery something that happens where you're just not quite in the zone for quite some
Yeah,
time. You know,
definitely.
and it's quite frightening because I think you're aware of it. At least I think I was anyway, until I became really aware of it when you come out of it, which is kind of like what you're saying,
Yeah,
you know?
scary stuff.
So you had the surgery, and how did that
Yeah.
go?
Um, results wise, or
Yeah,
like
results wise. Obviously, you had
results
quite.
wise, was not great. It was not a
Oh,
great year for me at
gosh,
all.
right, what happened?
I got my results in, I think we got some results in September that showed not a lot of
Hmm.
anything really. It was still very early days. Um, and then we got more results in February, which unfortunately showed that the syrinx had grown quite a lot. It had gone from previously it was C2 to T7, and now it was C2 to T12.
Wow,
And the
wow.
width of it is, we only found out the width of it through this appointment. No one had ever really told us before that it's 12 millimeters wide, which is very, very big.
It is. Millimeters always sound so tiny, but it's 1.2 centimeters, and
Yeah,
that's a hell of a width. When you think that your spinal cord is really the width of your, one of your fingers,
yeah,
you can't have much. You couldn't have had much room for that CF fluid to sloosh around in and get from A to B. No, you
no,
couldn't have
not at
done.
all.
No, no, no,
Yeah, so
no.
they think the reason for it was from like fibrosis, excessive scar tissue
Sure.
growth. Um, yeah, it wasn't great.
How were you coping at that
Um,
time? What kind of support were you getting? I mean, obviously, I'm gonna take it as read that your family were amazing, and certainly your mum.
yeah, yeah, of
Uh,
course.
you know, but what? How were you? How were you being counselled? I guess by the by the
Um,
medical fraternity.
I'm not really too sure, to be honest. I just kind of stayed around my friends because I've got very good mates around.
Mm.
Family and jiu-jitsu again is a big thing. It helps mental health so much. Just
Don't you worry,
being
I'm going to
around.
get to that. But in terms of the doctors and the neurosurgeons, post the operation, there you go. You've now got an extended syrinx from C2 to T12. What were they telling you?
They weren't amazing about it, I will be honest. But I think my appointment with my actual surgeon on the day of that got cancelled, so I ended up getting my results in quite a messy way from somebody who I'd never seen before. He just kind of put it on the screen and said, "Oh yeah," and he thought that I'd been told, and then obviously I had such a big reaction through shock that he didn't really know what to do, and he was just sort of sat there. But we didn't
Wow.
have
Okay.
much information at the time, to be
No.
honest. There wasn't much talk about it until a lot later when we had to switch hospitals because of that reason.
No, I understand. Okay, well, we won't go into that. We won't mention any names of hospitals or anybody
No.
involved, because we just shouldn't. But I don't need to be the brightest, the sharpest tool in the box to realize that, going from T7 to T12 with a syrinx of 12 millimeters, that syrinx growth would have caused some significant problems to you in terms of sensations and other
Yeah.
symptoms. So in terms of this new nerve damage, we're going to call it, what was happening?
The first thing that I really realised was sort of the left side of my torso was burning just randomly. If I've realised because when I used to go to bed, I'd go upstairs, I'd turn the light off, and that required me sort of bending a little bit sideways to the left. And every time I would turn the switch off, I'd get like a burning sensation in that side of my body. And I didn't really know what it was. And I did post about it on some of the Facebook groups, and I got obviously varied opinions. People were saying it could be bad, it could be good, whatever.
Mm, mm.
And eventually it just stopped. It went on for a couple of months and it stopped, and then it just went numb, and now I can't really feel it.
So the
And that was,
left side of your body, you can't really feel, no.
yeah, just from like, it's just sort of my rib area and the left side of my rib area, but
Okay,
all around to my back.
yeah, yeah, and so that's what, very little ability to feel pain, temperature, touch,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Yeah.
well, at the time I couldn't feel pain or temperature at all, and now I have thankfully got a bit of it back. I can feel,
Okay, well, that's
uh,
excellent. That's really good
yeah,
news.
I
Yeah,
can feel temperature again, so that's
yeah,
good.
yeah. And
Um,
it's worth pointing out, and I'm not a medical expert. I need a pound for every time I say that. That actually, being at such a young age, there is a strong case to say you're going to make some recovery.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Bodies have an amazing way of coping and healing. And I'm not going to even hazard a guess as to what that might look like in your case. But the fact that you've just made that little bit of progress in sensation, I think that's pretty encouraging.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
Totally. Okay. And what about balance issues, stability, muscular strength? I
Um,
mean, we're going to get onto Jiu Jitsu, don't you worry. But I mean, how was that looking at this point? So we're 24, 25.
uh, balance, I've never really had an issue with, weirdly. When you'd think with everything happening with your head, you'd have issues with it, but no, I've always had a good balance. I did have quite bad pain down mainly my right leg, but both of my legs were having quite horrible nerve pain.
Hmm.
And sort of, my mum's got she's got a big Land Rover, so when I would sort of step out of it and be on the ground, it'd send like shock from literally from my toe to the top of my head. So that
Yeah.
was very strange.
Yeah. Well, that's
That's
kind of what happens, I think, isn't it? When your nerve system is
blocked, yeah.
damaged, all the sensations start to change. I mean, I can't walk on a pebble beach in bare feet.
All right.
Yeah, I just can't. I just can't. It's physically impossible for me to do it because
Wow, that's interesting.
yeah, it's just like a million electric shocks going up my leg. So I
Ooh.
don't feel the stones as stones. I don't feel them as objects. I just feel them as electrical shocks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's very odd, very different, very amusing for
Yeah.
people who are watching. Hope. Let me tell you. So, okay, you change hospitals.
So I switched hospitals 2025, went under a new surgeon, and with all the news just being bad every time I saw him, it was obviously everything. The syrinx was growing, so he wanted to explore the back of the head again to see sort of what the scarring was looking like and try and remove it if he could. But there was no promise as to what he could and couldn't do because he hadn't seen the back of my head like my last surgeon had. So I agreed to have revision surgery, and I had the one where I think it is no patch. You sort of leave the hole in the dura, and you use the muscles to overlap instead of putting a patch on. because they think that my body just didn't agree with the patch that was put on in the first place, and that's why it, scarred so much.
Sure.
So I had that surgery on the 31st of December when I was 17. Um, and it seemed quite successful after it. We met another surgeon and he said they successfully managed to decompress the back of the head, the fourth ventricle, removed as much scar tissue as they could safely without getting too close to the brainstem.
The results for that, the outcome, how was that?
The outcome, I feel like the recovery was a lot better for me than the duroplasty one. Even it was
Great.
still very, very difficult, don't get me wrong, it was awful, but compared to the duroplasty, it was a lot smoother, a lot faster. I mean, I was back to physical activity within like 2 months, I'd say.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. Incredible.
yeah.
Okay.
And sort of things like turning my neck after the operation, I could do it so much smoother and easier than the second one. I could barely move my head.
Well, that is absolutely brilliant, which brings me right back because you've mentioned it so many times, and it's a theme that's running through the story that we have to address. Jiu-Jitsu. You are now in
Yeah.
your 10th year, 10th year of doing Jiu-Jitsu. So you've got the spinal condition, you've got chiari, you've had all of these operations, and yet through all of them, you've still been practicing, working out, and getting back to full fitness and
Yeah.
competing, I'm going to say, at a really high and disciplined level. So, look, what got you into jiu-jitsu and how has it helped you throughout your journey in terms of the diagnosis and the various surgeries and just coping with this condition?
What got me into it
Mm.
was probably the fact that I wanted to be a ninja because I was obsessed with Lego Ninjago when I was about 8. So, yeah, we met. We had a family dinner, and we had a friend of the family that came, and he's a black belt, quite a high black belt. So he just offered, to teach me a class or two, and then I did it, and I loved it, and I've been there ever since. To be honest.
Have you, I mean, what have the medical professionals been saying about you practicing jiu-jitsu? I guess some have been quite nervous, have
Yeah,
they? I mean,
they're not fans.
no, I bet you've had untold warnings. What on earth do you think you're doing, Hope?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I was a very sporty child. I did everything. I did tennis, climbing, football, all of it, and I had to quit pretty much everything other than jiu-jitsu, which I refused to quit. I couldn't drop that. Um,
You
so
kept the most aggressive, dangerous sport.
yeah, I kept the worst one. Yeah, pretty bad.
You know,
But
I quit snooker and I just get, I wanted to stay with something that was really safe,
yeah.
what are the risks? I mean, are there risks? I mean, do you consider the risks now? Does it affect your performance, your competition in terms of when you're out there on the mat?
I think risks, yeah, they're always going to be high, but they've like my sensei, he's called Phil. He's amazing. He's adapted it as much as he like basically can for me to be able to continue doing what I love because he knows how much I love it and how much it helps me. So we adapt the syllabus so I don't have to be thrown by other people. Obviously, my surgeon would go mad if I did that.
I
But
can understand his point of view.
yeah, I throw people. I'm basically just the annoying one that throws everyone around. But I focus on kata. I really enjoy that. For my competitions, I'd say the risk isn't like significantly high because I know what I'm doing most of the time and how to handle weapons and stuff. So yeah,
It's
I
an
keep
ama-
it to
it's an
like
amazing sport. I mean, you say you love it because you got into ninja. You sound like my son when he was much younger. But it is an amazing sport, and it's a like a lot of martial arts. It's the discipline
yeah, it's
and
amazing.
the training, and I don't think it's nowhere near just about physical well-being and health. It's also about mental well-being, isn't it? It's that
100%.
Zen-like concentration. You know.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the people there, I definitely wouldn't have kept doing it. Like the people there are amazing. I've made so many friends through it. It basically kept me going through all of this, to be honest.
And you're now training for your senior black belt.
Yeah, I've got it now. I was
Have
training
you?
for
Oh,
it when I.
congratulations. So when was that?
Thank you. It was June, early June. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
so very
I'm
recent.
I'm going to be a complete ignoramus here and say, what happens after senior black belt? Where do you go?
So when you get your senior black belt, you've got your first dan, and then you train for second, third, fourth, like every dan. So it goes up in, when I'm training for my second dan, it'll take me 2 years from now to get it. And
Right.
when I've got my second dan, it'll take me 3 years to get my third dan, and so on.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I said at the beginning of this podcast, it was a story of hope. A bit cheesy, bit cliche, but actually, I think if you were to step back from yourself and think, well, okay, I've been through this, and this, umpteen surgeries, and untold, you know, difficulties in terms of symptoms. And yet, this is where I'm now a black belt, a senior black belt in Jiu Jitsu. I mean, you must be pretty proud of yourself, right? As I'm
Yeah,
sure the
yeah,
people are around you. It's because it is a story of triumph over adversity, isn't it?
yeah, definitely.
But you're quite a, I mean, as is your generation, as is your right. You're I'm not going to say a bit of a keyboard warrior, but you're comfortable with social media, Facebook and Instagram. You've got an Instagram account, haven't you, where you've been bringing this to people's attention.
Yeah,
Have you met people of your age group who have really resonated with your story, or have reached out and said, "My gosh, I thought I was the only other teenager with this condition in the world"?
yeah, I get a lot of direct messages from a lot of different people, different ages, but the younger ones do tend to keep talking to me about things. Like, there's this one girl who we had a very similar sort of thing going on. She had her sports, she loved her sports, she had to drop them, and she just wants to continue doing certain ones. And she had a very similar size syrinx to mine. I think it was actually pretty much the exact same, other than the width. So we had our operations around just a month apart, and hers is actually her syrinx has collapsed quite significantly. So that's really good.
That's really good news. No, excellent. Oh, well,
Yeah.
just yeah, unfortunately, with this condition, it's no two conditions are the same, are they? They're all just
No.
completely different, and they carry their own bag of tricks around with them. So
Yeah, I 100% think that it's just one of them things that you don't understand it unless you have it.
you can't. You just really
Yeah.
can't. You just can't. You can be sympathetic, but I think it's very hard to demonstrate empathy with a condition such as this because when we're sat down at our desks, everything's pretty normal. It's sometimes when we're when we're not sitting down at our desks that things become quite apparent. So look, we're running out of time, and you've been very generous with yours. How are you now? So you've got your senior black belt. How are your symptoms? What's life like for you in terms of living with this condition?
Right now my syrinx is stable. Well, so far as we know, I've not had another scan since the op. I've only had one, and it was very, very close to the time that I had it. So it's stable. I do still have like quite a few symptoms that I think I just take for granted now, and I don't even realise that they're there. So I do
Yeah.
get,
Yeah, and it's
um,
important not to be defined by them, right?
yeah,
And as
100%.
you're illustrating perfectly, as you're demonstrating, not to be held back from tackling, the things you really want to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. But to be honest, I just keep going the best that I can. It's just part of me. So yeah.
There you go. Well, that's amazing. And all power to your elbow. I can say that. You see what I did there? There you go. All right. Well, are we going to see you at the Anne Conroy Trust meeting in the autumn?
Potentially then, yeah, maybe if I'm
And please,
available.
please, please do spread the word about it as well on your Instagram and your
Yeah, I
Facebook.
will do.
It'd be great to see many young people there. It's a great support network. And sometimes just meeting face to face and having a drink and a munch and just going, oh, right, oh, okay, swapping stories and just makes it, I don't know, it can be a solitary condition. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes
Yeah,
just having that interaction with others is quite reassuring.
yeah, 100%.
100%. Well, I'm going to give you the detail. I'm going to email you the details
Thank
of
you.
our Anne Conroy August meet, and it'd be great to see you and your mum and your family there when that occasion occurs. Look, Hope, thanks so much for sharing your story with us. I'm gonna ask you to do one final thing for an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old that's just been diagnosed. What's the one piece of advice? One thing you would say to them?
Definitely try and explain it to your friends, because I think the support from my friends is definitely something that's kept me going, because they're very understanding about it. And just like letting them research about it as well is great. They get to understand what's up. So I'd definitely say that.
Absolutely. And you know what? Stay informed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be that annoying child with the why.
Yeah.
Ask the questions until you're absolutely sure that you've got all the answers you need to reach a responsible decision. Because I'm a firm believer that, any teenager, whatever stage of their teenage years they're at, has the capacity to be informed, understand, and be party to their own decision making. Rather than have those decisions made for them. And that's what Brad said. I don't know if you listened to the last podcast, but Brad who's now a nurse in pediatric care. The point he made so eloquently in the last podcast. Hope, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you in the autumn. I'm going to wish you all the best. Go and get those Dans. Yeah,
Will do.
And above all, stay safe. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. You take care. Lovely to speak to you.
You too.
Well, that's an incredible story. I mean, I think in anyone's books, that's a story of resistance. You've got this serious spinal condition, but you are still going to do what you love. And look, no one's going to pretend that it doesn't carry significant risks potentially if you were to get things wrong. But no, all power to Hope. I've got nothing but respect for her, and I hope that everything works out all right. And I think we should touch base with her again, check in and see how she's doing. I think I should point out that the responsible message here is that when it comes to practicing full contact martial arts like Jiu Jitsu, when you have syringomyelia, I guess it's generally not considered safe by medical professionals as a rule. Yeah, medical guidelines and neurological specialists strongly advise against participating in contact sports, collision sports, or heavy resistance activities if you have a syrinx. You know what that is? That's a fluid-filled cavity within the spinal cord. But because every case of syringomyelia is distinct depending on the size, location, and underlying cause of the syrinx, you should consult your neurologist or neurosurgeon before starting, continuing, or modifying any physical activity, because only they can provide an individualized risk assessment based on your specific clinical history and imaging. That said, Hope, go for it. If you are being advised by the best people, and you need to live the life that you need to live. So there you go. That's the end of this week's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you join us again for more illuminating personal stories for those living with syringomyelia and chiari malformation. And don't forget to visit the Anne Conroy Trust website. Look us up, Google us, the Anne Conroy Trust. And if you can join us at the meeting later this year, that would be tremendous. So that's it from me. I'll see you again next time. Take care.